videos and theories from all over the internet that's going to make you question reality. Let's just start.
And she
Best advice I heard, this was from a divorce lawyer, telling young men to stay single, never marry, bank your sperm, get a vasectomy, never marry, stay single, don't get a woman pregnant, hire a surrogate, IVF. When the baby's born, pay the surrogate to go away, raise your child in safety and happiness, free from narcissistic misandry.
What do you guys think
Might be
about
the
this?
best advice I've ever heard a man give to young men. I'll definitely be passing that on to my sons.
The way it makes sense. I don't know.
Bro, yeah, wait now. I gotta get it.
He's gonna make it.
Bro, what in, watch the dogs. Through some of these.
There's a White House, right?
Dude.
Is he stuck?
Is he stuck?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Look at the dogs. We'll get there in the right spot. You arrested him.
For what? This is crazy. Just do this to get arrested. It's crazy. Why would you do this? For what reason? Just miss going to jail, I guess.
Hey guys, this area is going to be closed. Start going either way.
Thank you.
Something that men really need to consider these days is keeping receipts. Keep those text messages, keep the voice notes, keep the emails. Whatever receipts you have, keep them because you don't know if you're going to need them in the future. Women these days are crazy. Look at the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively situation. If he wouldn't have kept his text messages, he would have been screwed. Thank God he kept the receipts, and that's what men need to do these days to protect themselves. So make sure that you don't delete those messages because you don't know if you're going to need them in the future. And this goes for any ordinary man. Women these days will take things out of context, and so now men have to protect themselves. Keep the receipts. Hopefully you won't have to use them, but at least this way you're able to defend yourselves if there's a false allegation. So make sure you keep receipts. It is crucial for men these
Noted.
days.
It seems Donald Trump wants to build a massive empire during his presidency. First, he'll take over Canada, then Mexico, the Panama Canal, and finally, Greenland. If this vision became a reality, here's what the US might look like. Removing borders with Canada would boost security and cut defense costs, as the US spends heavily on Canada's defense. Adding Mexico would bring cultural richness, workforce, and a booming tourism industry. Greenland's strategic location and natural resources would make the US a true global superpower. And with the Panama Canal under its control, this nation would dominate global trade and energy flows. The combined land area would be 9.3 million square miles, 1.5 times larger than Russia. With a population of over 500 million, this new country would be the third most populous, behind India and China. And with a GDP over $30 trillion, its power would be unquestionable.
I did not see this coming, and I'll bet you didn't either. I don't think anybody did. President Trump meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu made the announcement today, just moments ago. This is major breaking news. It's about the future of the Middle East, and trust me when I say, this is going to blow your mind.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
Think about it. In the 70s, you had a peace deal between Egypt and Israel. Egypt didn't want Gaza, so Israel took it. In 2005, Israel left and gave them their independence. Then they elected Hamas as their government. And then, of course, the violence continued. You have to do something different, but man, I didn't see this coming. Did you? What are your thoughts about this? The United States getting involved, taking that strip of land, and potentially bringing peace. I think it could potentially be an incredible idea as long as the surrounding nations are on board and they understand why this would be good for all of them. Give me your thoughts. Make sure you share this. Make sure you follow. And don't forget, come on!
The three men who matter most when it comes to war and peace in our time: Donald Trump, Xi Jinping, and Vladimir Putin. Their mindsets are different from those of the American and Soviet leaders during the Cold War, and yet very similar to each other's. They're all imperialists, and that's scary. Let me explain. During the Cold War, American and Soviet leaders stood for ideologies. The US was for liberty and capitalism. The Soviets were for Marxist-Leninism. That turned out surprisingly stable. The Cold War stayed cold. These days, China and Russia stand for something else: power for its own sake, and a lust for dominance that includes territorial expansion. That has a word: imperialism. But it's more of an instinct than an ideology. If you want an analogy, it's the 19th century when the great powers competed for colonies, which led them straight into the trenches of World War I. So a world of imperialists is dangerous. For many decades, though, the United States stood against imperialism because it thought of itself as a beacon or crusader of liberty. That time is over, and the reason is Trump. He doesn't care about the so-called liberal international order, in which even small countries can feel safe because the great powers follow rules. He's instead threatening small countries. Denmark, because he wants Greenland. Panama, because he wants its canal. Canada, because he wants all of it. He has not been threatening Putin and Xi as much, and instead signals that he wants to make a deal. And notice something else. Trump's favorite predecessor is not one of those guys on Mount Rushmore. It's William McKinley. Why? One reason is that McKinley used trade tariffs a lot, and Trump loves tariffs. Another is that McKinley was the only openly imperialist president. He seized Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Philippines, the Western Samoan Islands, and Wake Island, and he annexed Hawaii. McKinley was a Republican, and in 1900 the Democrats warned that imperialism abroad will lead inevitably to despotism at home. They lost the election and McKinley was assassinated. But within a few years, public opinion went the other way. Imperialism was again considered bad in America, right up until Trump. Do you know who's thrilled about that? Putin and Xi. They want to cut deals with him, to carve up the world into spheres of influence. Putin wants Eastern Europe, Xi wants Asia. And for that, they'll give the Western Hemisphere to Trump, because they're all three imperialists. Remember what those Democrats said over a century ago. Imperialism abroad will lead to despotism at home.
Dear son, read this carefully. What you eat rewires your brain. Goals you set, skills you learn, books you read, habits you build rewires your brain. Way you exercise, music you listen to, challenges you face, how much you sleep rewires your brain. Languages you speak, gratitude you practice, thoughts you entertain rewires your brain. Environment you live in, people you interact with, way you talk to yourself, emotions you experience. Be in control of thyself. Be in control of your surroundings. Everything is having an effect. Nothing is neutral.
Men and women look at attraction very differently. Okay. So with both straight and gay men, it's been my experience as a professional matchmaker that when a man meets a person that he might be on a date with, the first thought in their mind is, could I sleep with them? I'm not saying you'll allow them. I'm not even saying that could happen ever, but it's like this. Yeah. If it's a yes, then there will be a second date. Like if the date goes well, then there will be a second date. But if it's not a yes, the date could be perfect. It has been my experience having set up 10,000 first dates that no one has ever gone on a second date. If that first, like if I just wasn't attracted. With women, it's very different. Women, the first thing they check on a man is the C factor, creep factor. Is he a creep? It's just a vibe. Yeah, right? Totally. You see someone, you're like, yeah. And by the way, you feel it in your body. You feel it in your body. Yeah. It's like, ooh. The next thing that they do, though, is like they will account for how attractive he is. right? But it doesn't sway this date now, right? It just like what sways is the C factor. Is this going to go well or not?
Right.
But that second part, is he attractive? Usually women maybe subconsciously will put a number, like, and maybe not a number, like a level. Like, oh, he's kind of cute. Or,
Yeah.
I don't think he's cute at all. But like, there's a level. Now, in that date, if you ask her questions, if the date makes her laugh, if the date makes her feel safe throughout the date, if the date is leaning in and making her feel interested and interesting, whatever that level was, maybe it was mid, it's gotten to the top now.
This is why you should always listen to the Holy Spirit. Airplane pilot Captain Milo was getting his airplane ready for flight when he heard a voice in his head say, "Leave this place, depart early." He thought maybe it was his imagination until he heard the voice again, and that's when he knew it was the Holy Spirit. So he got his airplane into the air 3 minutes early, and here's the crazy part. At the exact moment of the original departure time, a huge earthquake hit the runway. But because the airplane was already in the air, Captain Mila and his 148 passengers were completely safe. Wow! Praise God. If you are thankful for the Holy Spirit's protective guidance, then subscribe for more true stories like this one.
I really think humanity is going to go through some of the biggest changes it has seen in the next 5 years. Check this out. Imagine a humanoid robot that moves as naturally as a human. CMU researchers in collaboration with NVIDIA have developed ASAP, which is a two-stage framework that makes this possible. So first what they do is they pre-train the robot's motion policies using human movement data, as you can see in these videos, teaching it to move naturally. Then they refine these motions in the real world, which essentially fine-tunes the robot's actions by correcting any discrepancies between simulation and reality. And this innovative approach really enhances the robot agility, enabling more precise and adaptive movements. In short, ASAP is a breakthrough that brings us closer to robots that can safely and effectively navigate our complex real-world environments. I mean, imagine working next to one of these or dancing next to one of these. Check this out, this is pretty fun. What are your thoughts about living next to robots?
Is DeepSeek lying to you and collecting your data? Well, let's put it to the test. In this example, I've got an Android phone connected via an Ethernet cable to this wiretap. I've disabled Wi-Fi on this phone so that I can capture all traffic sent by this phone. I'm capturing the traffic using Wireshark, which is an application that allows me to see what's actually being sent through a cable such as this. I am looking at where traffic is being sent. So is DeepSeek actually sending your data to China, even though it says it's not? Well, let's put it to the test. So at the moment here, you'll notice that there's no city displayed on the output in Wireshark. But what happens when I run DeepSeek? What you'll notice is traffic is being sent to Beijing. In this example, 51 packets were sent to Beijing. You can also see that traffic is being sent to this company. This is Alibaba Cloud. This is a company located in China. So your data is being sent to China. Even though when I asked it, is my data being sent to China when I use DeepSeek? I'm told, no, your data is not being sent to China. But that's not what I'm seeing here. I asked it again, is my data being sent to China? No, my data is not being sent to China. So in real time, is my data sent to China? We told no, your data is not sent to China when you use DeepSeek, even though we can clearly see that 27 packets are sent to China. So in this example, I'll close the application down. I'll start it up again. And notice transmit packets have changed to 53 packets. Traffic is being sent directly to China as well as to a company that's located in China. So what do you think? Is this a good test of DeepSeek? Are you concerned that your data is being sent to China, as I've demonstrated here? Countries such as Italy are blocking DeepSeek because of data protection. But what are your thoughts? Are you concerned about this? Is it a problem or don't you care?
Listen to what this preacher says about God using the devil. Watch this.
I grew up in an old Pentecostal church, and a preacher one time came through and told a story about this woman. I don't know if it's a true story, but it always encouraged me. This woman, she was a widow. She had nothing. She had no food. And every day she would get down on her knees and she would pray, God, fill my pantry. Fill my pantry with food. And one day there was a knock at the door. When she opened up the door, right there on the doorstep was all the food she had been looking for. She said, oh my goodness, God did it. God did it. Right while she was praising God, a man jumped out from behind the bushes and he said, aha, I'm your next door neighbor and I'm an atheist. And I heard you praying yesterday for God to fill your pantry. So I went to the grocery store. I bought all the groceries. I put them right here on the doorstep. And I hid in the bushes, all to watch you praise a God that does not exist. She said, God did it. God did it. He said, no. You are not listening. You are praising the wrong God. I heard you praying the prayer from the window. I don't believe in God. There is no God. I went to the grocery store. I bought the groceries with my own money, with my own credit card, put them in my car, drove them over here, put them on the doorstep, knocked on the door, hid in the bushes, all to watch you give praise to a God that does not exist. This woman, she doesn't know much, but she said God did it, and he made the devil pay for it.
Yeah, come on, somebody. If you believe that God can use the devil to do your bidding, comment amen in the comments and follow and subscribe for more.
Two of my favorite talks you've done, they were like bookends. Why beautiful women are nuts and why successful men are jerks.
Which one do you want me to talk about first?
Take your pick. Which one are you in the mood for?
Well,
you got to compare the two.
Let's go with why successful men are jerks, because I've found that when we give men a hard time first, sometimes it's more palatable when we come to the women.
You're learning how to be diplomatic.
Thank you. So the word I would use, which I used in the episode but not in the title, is why successful men are assholes. And that's generally what men are accused of, as being assholes. And the reason why successful men turn out this way, I don't think they usually start this way, they turn into that, is because they have learned to do all kinds of things that they don't really want to do in order to get and keep women. I don't think women understand that probably 95% of what an average man does is designed to increase his chances to either get or keep women.
King David was an adulterer and a murderer, and he was still a man after God's own heart. Have you ever heard anyone say that? It's often said by people who are trying to justify their sin. But what many people don't realize is that although God forgave David, his sin still came with 3 major consequences. Number 1, his son from his adulterous affair would only get to live for 7 days before passing away. Number 2, what David did in private by taking another man's wife would be done to him in public. And number 3, the sword would never leave his house, bringing division and tragedy for all the days of his life. The truth is this: God is merciful and he is forgiving, but he often holds his leaders to a higher standard, and our sin can still come with major consequences.
This is how humans migrated out of Africa. The Great Migration began in East Africa, particularly around present-day Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania, where Homo sapiens began to move out to the Levant region and the Arabian Peninsula using narrow land bridges about 100,000 years ago. They followed the coasts of the Red Sea to take advantage of food sources in fresh water. About 60,000 to 40,000 years ago, these people moved out in 2 different directions. One group moved northwest into Europe, while another traveled eastward, reaching South Asia, and even as far as Southeast Asia. This is also when they first came across other human species, like Neanderthals, and started interbreeding with them, which is why we find traces of Neanderthal DNA in modern humans. These people from Southeast Asia then moved in 2 directions. One group traveled northward to East Asia, while the other moved south to Australia. Then came one of the boldest steps in humanity's journey: crossing into the Americas. Around 15,000 to 20,000 years ago, humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge from Siberia to Alaska, and from there, they spread southward, eventually reaching the southern tip of South America.
China has fired back at the US with sweeping countermeasures, slapping new tariffs on American imports, restricting critical mineral exports, and launching an antitrust probe into Google. The escalation marks a sharp turn in already fraught trade relations. Beijing's response follows Washington's decision to impose a blanket 10% tariff on all Chinese imports, effective from the stroke of midnight, triggering immediate retaliation. China is now slapping a 15% tariff on US coal and liquefied natural gas, while crude oil, agricultural machinery, and large engine vehicles will face a 10% duty. These penalties take effect February 10th, sending a clear message that Beijing is ready for a prolonged fight. But China isn't just targeting goods. It's cutting off access to materials the US needs for high-tech manufacturing. Tungsten, tellurium, bismuth, molybdenum, and indium, critical to semiconductors, defense systems, and renewable energy, will now face export controls tightening the noose on American industry. China's finance ministry slammed the US tariffs as a serious violation of global trade rules, warning that Washington's approach threatens global stability. Beijing has already taken its case to the World Trade Organization, setting the stage for a broader international showdown. President Donald Trump, however, isn't backing down. Justifying his tariff hike, he pointed to China's massive trade surplus and its alleged role in fentanyl smuggling. China hopefully is going to stop sending us fentanyl, and if they're not, the tariffs are going to go substantially higher, Trump declared. The White House confirmed that he won't be speaking with Chinese President Xi Jinping until later this week.
Fentanyl, and that includes China. Fentanyl has killed this year at least 200,000 people. Whoa. It's pouring in from China through Mexico and Canada, and they've got to stop it. And if they don't stop it, the tariffs are going to get worse, a lot worse.
While the US turns the screws on China, Trump is cutting Mexico and Canada some slack. A last-minute deal has postponed a proposed 25% tariff on their exports for 30 days, on the condition that both nations strengthen border security and crack down on crime. The latest US-China spat is reviving memories of 2018, when both nations engaged in a brutal tariff war, slapping duties on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods, disrupting global supply chains and hammering industries worldwide. With the world watching, markets are already on edge. The question now, is this the start of another economic standoff? Or can the world's two largest economies find a way to step back before the damage spirals out of control?
Peppers has a way of making pain bearable.
What do you mean by that?
Think about it. If you got hurt, you got cut, and they needed to put some alcohol in it, that pain is unbearable. But you understand the purpose of that pain. The purpose of the pain is to kill the sore so that you can regain your health. So because of that purpose, that pain is bearable. Pain becomes very unbearable outside of purpose.
True.
That's the construct.
This is the actual reason they won't self-checkouts at stores, y'all. Check this out.
Every store is pushing self-checkout so hard. It's not about efficiency, it's about control. Right now, it feels convenient. Scan your items, pay, and go.
The reason is way darker than you thought.
Phase 1 is always about getting us comfortable.
Yep.
Phase 2, stores with no employees, no cashiers, just shelves, cameras, and drones watching your every move.
Total surveillance, y'all.
And here's the twist. It's not just about monitoring. They'll control what you can buy using something called carbon credits.
Yep.
Every product you pick up will deduct from your yearly limit. Want a fancy lab-grown steak?
Kinda makes sense why they're pushing lab-grown meat.
Sure, but that might cost you all your credits for the year.
Yep.
Luxury items will be rationed, and you'll be stuck with sustainable choices they decide are good for you. Think about it. The illusion of choice, but your groceries, your meals, all pre-approved by AI systems.
This is the Orwellian nightmare they warned us about in the 80s.
Out of line, pick up something unauthorized, and boom, the drones flag you.
Yep.
Maybe they even shut down your payment chip.
Oh,
They're
really?
building a system where you don't decide what's in your cart. They do. And it all starts with a simple self-checkout. Convenient, right?
It's also starting to make sense why they're moving towards a cashless society. No cash means they can track every transaction you make. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Stay weird.
Menugate, have you heard of that?
Menugate?
This man, his name is Cody, lives in Atlanta. He walked out of his apartment one day and noticed every single door in his hallway had a Chinese menu in the doorway. 3 days later, still there in every doorway. All of them. And he's like, what in the world? It's like 3 days. Everyone in my hall has not opened their door. And then it was like 5 days still there. He's like, this is weird. So he went down to the parking garage and looked at the cars. And the majority of the cars in the parking garage were covered in dust. And he's like, that's weird. And then he's like, okay, this is like freaking me out a little bit. Went through his whole apartment building, couldn't find a fire alarm. Finally, like went down like one weird hallway or whatever, found one, pulls it. And supposedly there's supposed to be 800 people living in this apartment building. No one came out. He went out into his local little nook where his apartment was, and every like coffee shop and place that he went to, there was always one man in there wearing a suit talking on the phone. He said these men were all saying the same thing into the phone, and he just...
The music industry isn't what you think.
Oh,
let me tell you why. So here's the reality. Reality shows and competition shows have given us a sense that the music industry is based on big stages, bright lights, major audiences, huge exposure. The reality is the majority of today's music industry, and really all of the music industry historically, has been made up of working artists who do it for the love, and over years of doing it for the love, break through to a point where they get increasing commercial success. Very rarely do people start right at the top. And you know what I love about that? We're out here for the love of the game. The music industry is primarily made up of creatives who love making music. If that's you, welcome. If it's not you, take some stock in what you expect to receive from this pursuit. It's worth your time to think about what you want and why.
More bad news with tattoos. I told you these things are bad. Listen, I did a video showing that a study that 21% chance of getting a malignant lymphoma with even small tattoos. Size did not matter in that case. But listen to this. This ink has heavy metals in it: mercury, lead, arsenic, cadmium, and even aluminum. And where they inject it, it can stay locked in that dermis, and it can cause problems in the lymphatic system, the liver, and even cross the blood-brain barrier, meaning you're constantly being poisoned by the toxins. Oh, by the way, the study also showed that half the inks that they tested have an avo-containing dye that when exposed to UV sunlight, it becomes very causing. So look, the risk is not worth it. The fact is removing these tattoos actually removes the chances of continued toxicity. There's the suggestion.
Isn't it crazy that a male feminist was just nearly taken down by a feminist? This guy, Justin Baldoni, has staked his entire identity on being a man who worships feminism. So much so that his life's work is a movie he directed and starred in about domestic violence against women. And what was his reward for being such a powerful ally? His feminist co-star taking over his movie and then suing him for sexual misconduct on set. Yeah, so it turns out that positioning yourself as a male feminist does not gain you an ounce of respect. It actually just makes you a target to be taken advantage of because they all just see you as a beta.
Okay, things you can learn from a billionaire having a casual conversation on their newest private jet. Yeah, it really happened, and yeah, that's where I was the other day. I found myself having this conversation with the subject of our photo shoot, but in that conversation, he reminded me of something. He dropped a nugget that I think is worth sharing because it is the single, as I reflect on it, it is the single key difference between the super successful and everybody else. This one thing that he shared is really the difference in all of it. The challenge with this is that when I say it, most of the people who are listening are going to go, yeah, I get it, and they're just going to scroll by. And that's a shame, because in truth, this is one of those things that you really have to reflect on and then start thinking about, do I really do this? Do I not do it? And until you really sit down and understand just exactly what it is that he was sharing, you're not going to get any benefit or value from what it is. But here it is, nonetheless. So get ready to scroll if you're impatient. The big thing is how they look at time. Because all of us, everybody from, the greatest success story ever to the man on the street sleeping on a park bench, is limited to the exact same 24 hours in a day. That's the big thing. We are all of us limited to the same 24 hours in a day. The difference between the way that the super successful, ultra successful people look at that is how they manage it over the course of the day. they don't think about things the way that most of us do. There's a pro-con list that goes on in their head all the time about, if I spend time doing this, what's the net benefit from it? And what is the detriment? What am I giving up if I don't do this thing? Or if I choose to do something else, how could I benefit in a larger way? And you might think, yeah, I get that idea, Bill. Like, I get the concept of it. But not at this level, you don't. Like, we're talking about, why should I sit in an airport for 2 hours when I can take the flight in 45 minutes? That's all that time wasted. And why should I, use this provider that takes me another 25 minutes when I can use somebody else? Or why do this thing at all when I can delegate to a team that I know that I can trust? That evaluation of your life at that level, with that level of scrutiny, about how can I set up every single thing that I do, every way that I do it, to be surrounded by people that can help me make the absolute most of my time, is the critical difference. And if you begin to sit down and really get quiet and think about how are you losing time, all the different ways that you're losing time, and what could you do to get a hold of time in a different way, you're going to start seeing benefits that you really didn't see were there before. And as you begin to plot those out and make that a thing that you do, you're going to find that there's tremendous advantage in doing it. And I'm going to be talking a lot about the role that time plays in marketing and branding, and why the value and what the relationship is between branding a company versus just going out and doing a sales effort or doing promotions effort, because there is one, and it's dramatic. And what it has to do with, at the end of the day, is manipulating time to your advantage. And when you can manipulate time to your advantage in a major way, then you get more time in the day than anybody else does. And when that happens, you can achieve scale. So if you were curious and if you hung on this long, the big thing you're looking for is manipulating time to your advantage, because when you do that, you can accomplish more in a day than anybody else can. And that's exactly how the ultra successful continue to be that way.
What's your go-to advice for men who date, straight men who date?
If you want to lead a happy life, you bank a bunch of sperm, you get a vasectomy. You never have a kid with a woman, you never get married. The follow-up question is always going to be, well, I want to be a dad. Okay, hence, never have a kid with a woman. That's called surrogacy. Save $50,000 in child support fees, paid to the surrogate. She'll go away afterwards. You get to have bouncing baby daddy, and you get to be a wonderful father for the rest of your life with no problems.
If you can replace any filler word, any crutch word that you have with silence, silence is a vacuum. And the cool thing about vacuums is that they pull attention to you. And I think people dramatically underestimate the amount of silence they're afforded. If I look back actually at my early videos, I dramatically underestimated the value of silence. I thought that I had to get it all out there and be super interesting really fast in order to keep that AVD really, really high. And I've since seen and learned, when you have a story and you learn the beats where you've set up the mystery, and so there's these lines that you'll say in a story, it's like, the craziest thing happened the other day. There's these hooks, and you get an intuitive feel for where you've got the audience on the edge of their seat, and especially then to just take a breath or have a pause. You don't need to think all of this out, but that becomes second nature. That's very valuable, and it comes from the way that I've seen people do is when you record yourself, tell a story, and just watch back how many ums and uhs you have in it.
Y'all, this shit is crazy, fool. And this man's face is making it even crazier. The shit he said to this little kid, you don't say that shit, bruh. Not even as a joke.
I eat children. How old are you? Okay, only to 10.
Not The Rock. This man in on it too? But then again, it makes sense because after the WWE, this man became a star in Hollywood. Make it make sense, y'all. Now you ask yourself, for the people that be like, he was just joking, would you say that to a kid? I done seen people say, I fight kids. I ain't never heard somebody say they eat them. Y'all gotta realize, bruh, they be doing this shit right in our faces. And it be people like you that be like, bro, he didn't really mean it. Or you really think that can happen? People really do that? Look at the world. You know how evil the world is? So why is it hard for you to believe something like that can happen? Just because that's your favorite wrestler? As always, man, y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Shit crazy, fool.
So the research says 7-11-4. 7 hours, 11 interactions on 4 platforms. In order for you to be successful, you've got to get into people's head. They have to kind of know who you are. In order to do that, they have to spend time with you, they have to have repetition with you, and they have to see you in multiple contexts. Now, there's this phenomenon called parasocial relationships. Parasocial relationships are basically one-sided relationships. It's how we feel towards famous people. That person, we've spent time with them through their movies, through their media appearances, and therefore, because they've clocked up 7-11-4 with us, we then feel that we know them.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so what we have to do is build parasocial relationships at scale. So what we have to do is put out enough stuff where anyone can spend 7 hours, 11 interactions on 4 platforms. So when I work with entrepreneurs, here's one of the questions I always ask. I say, if I was to block out tomorrow and I'm going to take all day to watch, read, or listen to everything that you've got available online, can I spend all day going through your online environment and just fill the entire day?
Have you ever proactively looked for a partner and thinking a lot about finding a partner?
No, it's always kind of stumbled upon me.
Typically, people who are competent and looking for that same thing in a partner, they focus on bettering themselves before they focus on looking for another. A human who's like, I really just want to be with somebody. I want to be with somebody. I'm ready. How do I find my person? Get that energy out of your life as both a woman, which I can speak more to, and a man. And instead become somebody worth finding. And that's really hard to hear. But when you start working out, which doesn't mean you have to be perfectly fit, but you have more energy. When you start pursuing something that you're uniquely interested in, you're more interesting, and thus you will attract more interesting people. I think one of the worst things we've ever done is allow dating apps to enter into our dating equation. We have thought that it is a numbers game of finding the right person as opposed to becoming the right person. When you become the right person, you will attract people continuously no matter what. And I've seen this from both myself and my friends who are varying levels of attractive, varying levels of rich, but working really hard on a few things that make them very interesting.
And we've come to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, because I did. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and also share with your friends. And also click on the notification bell icon so that any video that I post, you will be the first to get it. Adios amigos, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye.